Everybody's winning. Yeah, you gotta come on campus. Every time you hear it.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to have all of you here. Just know that we are only a couple of days away from spring break, so please do.
Okay.
There, I know things are coming to a head for all of you. Charging on with the rest of the semester, folks. We are on the back end of the semester. All right, folks, just wanted to draw to your attention our membership for today. Betsy Casriel let me know that she may not be able to attend. She hasn't yet designated a proxy for her yet. But we will try to keep her apprised of what is going on today. We have Danielle, who's going to be joining us remotely as well. And I also think that Roosevelt will be joining too. So let's please call this meeting to order, everyone, at this time. We will be taking public comments. Are there any public comments in the room, please? We have Cornelia, please.
All right, I tried to print it out, but it was too late. Thank you so much, and good afternoon, senators. And thank you for hearing my public comment today. As you were aware, the SBCC Board of Trustees was on the verge of approving several staff layoffs in their most recent meeting. The board had to vote on a resolution whether to send March 15 notices to 3 colleagues from our IT department and 1 from our duplicating department. Several faculty, including Senators Laura Wyatt and Barbara Bell, a large number of staff came out to that board meeting on March 12th and spoke up on the lack of fairness, the lack of transparency, and that our processes have not been followed. For example, that neither the Budget Committee nor CPC were heard in any discussions about layoffs. For example, that employment data was suddenly presented at that board meeting in support of these layoffs that had never been shared anywhere else before. Nobody knew that this data was coming. It was one slide, it was undated, and there was no possibility to verify those numbers. We are grateful to Trustee Stoddard and those of her fellow board members who voiced their concern about the lack of process in this matter and voted no. The board voted to postpone the decision and will give everyone time for a thorough analysis of our operations to inform a truly evidence-based discussion and the consideration of alternative actions such as emergency hires only, retraining, reassignments, or retirements. This will ensure that any potential future layoffs would be, in fact, the last resort measure as which they are outlined in our own board policies. The next board meeting is on April 24, and I encourage all of you to attend. It is important that our board sees and hears from us. We are the educators for our students. The FA will also send out an email update tomorrow to all faculty about a number of other areas of concern, including a negotiation update. So please check your email before you go on your well-deserved spring break and come back safely. Thank you so much.
Oh, and Cornelia, thank you. And that's April 23.
Oh, April 23. Thank you.
Just to clarify for everyone.
I've always been bad with numbers.
And checking in on Zoom, Parker, I believe that you had a public comment.
I did. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Perfect. Okay, well, following off of what Cornelia said, and on behalf of CSEA and our classified staff, I also wanted to thank our faculty colleagues for the support you all showed in opposing layoffs, especially in the lead up to and at the March 12th board meeting. Many of you, some in this room, spoke publicly and raised concerns about the process and made it clear that the layoffs would have real consequences for our college community. The support meant a great deal to our members and our staff, and we really appreciate not having to face that moment alone. We really appreciated not having to face that moment alone. So thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Parker. Switching back to BC 214, is there anyone in the room who has a public comment to share? And switching back to Zoom, is there anybody left visiting from Zoom who has all right. If not, may I draw your attention to the approval of the minutes, please. If you could please have a look at the March 11 minutes, see if there's anything that needs amending or any further discussion. Otherwise, can I please get a motion to approve the minutes?
And I'm trying to look on my own, I remember before I made the public comment at the board meeting. What was the date of the board meeting, the last one?
March 12th.
Okay, and I made a public comment here. I don't see it reflected in the minutes. And I don't remember, I'm trying to
About
remember.
the vending machine, because that.
There was that too, but I also made the one that I'm saying, comment I made at the board of trustees meeting, and maybe I'm looking, I know, I thought I made. If I made a public comment last,
Well, the vending machine comment is in the.
About,
about
Josh?
Josh's treatment at the last board meeting, maybe that was the
Yeah.
the previous. Was it, okay, thank you, it's all blurred to me, I apologize.
you also bet was number.
So glad that was first.
They're all important, Barbara.
Yes, oh, I just want to make sure it's in there. Just wanna make sure it's in-
Thank you very
Sorry
much,
about that.
Barbara. I will make sure to review the logs from the video and I will make sure
Just make
to.
sure I got it, thank you.
Otherwise, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you so much. I think that was Laura.
Laura,
Thank you. And do we have a second? Second, thank you very much, Tara. All in favor?
Bye.
Any opposed?
No.
Any abstentions?
I'm abstaining, because I wasn't there.
Katie abstains. Okay, very good. Motion to approve the minutes approved. Thank you.
Can I ask for a point of order?
Please.
You sent us something to pre-read for the academic senate?
No?
Yeah.
yeah,
That- I don't know what that is.
Well,
I'm
it takes you to this AI
Yeah.
thing and it circles you around and.
trying I apologize for that, folks. I have been going into my Zoom account. I have shut off everything AI. It keeps on intruding on every meeting. Every meeting that I attend, I have to disable read AI or remove that thing
Yeah, I got that too.
from that. So
We just ignore that, right?
ignore that. I'm gonna see if I can go to the FRC for some help in cutting all of the AI extensions out. That's a new one.
And then will you teach us how to do it?
I will do that.
We want the real thing.
All right, folks.
Is that-
So
There's a hand.
there's a hand.
Maybe, and Betsy's not here, right?
Betsy,
I am almost certain that her name is there instead of mine. I think that was my public comment in 3.1, and she was sitting next to me nodding, but that may be indeed my public comment.
okay.
So could you check?
The pre-read said it was you.
It was, and even it didn't get it quite right, the AI part, but that may be indeed my public comment. So just when you check.
But that does look like your comment. Yeah, and also it wasn't just about food service availability for our students. It was also about the conduct. I remember that.
That was a different one,
All right, folks. We will amend the record accordingly.
but you'll check. I'd appreciate that, Josh. Thank you.
Right, folks, so drawing your attention to the Academic Senate's reports under communications, just a reminder, the quad chairs for the PRT work on revamping the resource guide to governance and decision-making. As you know, it's been reformatted into the compendium of institutional planning and governance. That has since undergone another rewrite as well. We've gone in and looked at all of the feedback that we received. A lot of that we have to thank Jamie Campbell and Cornelia for providing their comments. All of that has been integrated into the compendium. If you belong to any of our participatory governance groups, there are one-pagers for those committees. Please have a look at them for completeness. It's primarily there to be able to say what are the standards that they appeal to for accreditation, and also there to break down the membership about voting and non-voting members. So all of that is available to you, as well as feedback that has been provided as well. There will be another copy that will be going around. And I will make sure to furnish for you all of the details for what comments have been resolved. It was me and Julie Sampson, Nicole Aldendick from IR, and Ryan Alexander, who went through all of those comments. So there will be a second read coming around for Senate feedback. Hopefully that spreadsheet will also help you to narrow down what we need to focus on as well, and to say the others are actually looking pretty good. That spreadsheet is actually summarized for you here. This is the compilation of all of the feedback that was given. And also we are trying to mark up what has actually been covered already and what has been integrated into the guide too. So for those of you who managed to provide some feedback, I do appreciate it. Thank you. The other, just wanted to let you know, yes, our jobs are finally on the web, the ones that were approved for 4 of our departments. We are also adding the new HIM bachelor's degree program to that list as well. Got a chance to be able to talk with Lynette Williamson. We may be agendizing a discussion around HIM over concerns about how to be able to help launch this program as well. We've been in limbo with the chancellor's office and with challenges to education efforts for that bachelor's degree, but that has since been cleared, so we are a go. But that means there are big curricular pieces that need to be addressed. Also, having even a rudimentary portal to be able to onboard students, just like we see in nursing and also with radiography as well, so that we have students queued. Likely this is going to be a soft launch using primarily our existing HIT students. But there are also concerns about how we are going to provide counseling support for that as well. This is going to be a very big collaborative process. Everybody's trying to make this work at last minute. The administration has expressed that they want a cohort of at least 20 students to begin this soft launch. As for the other 4 positions, this is one of the landing pages that we have that at a glance shows all of the positions that we have for full-time for faculty. However, we do have another page on the HR website that sends you in branching directions. One is for classified positions, others are for faculty positions where most of our part-time positions are listed. None of the full-time positions are actually listed on that page, which can sometimes get a little bit confusing for people who are showing up to look for our jobs. HR has been made aware of this. They are trying to integrate those pages together. It's going to take time. And they are short-staffed as well, as you know, with Perla departing. That also leaves us with wondering how successfully we will be able to carry out the process at this point. Just to put it on your radar, those positions are set to close on April 12th. Now, it's not undoable, but because these are CTE positions, and also if we consider biomedical sciences, these are positions that are not going to be easy to fill. So there is that question, what is our plan B? Is it possible that we may even have to go into summer, but there's a compensation issue for the faculty who are involved in those committees as well. So to be continued, folks, I do have my concerns about whether or not we will fill these in time. But then again, these are 5 positions that we are looking at, not 22 like we had one year. I think it can be done, but there's a question about the viability.
The HIM was separate from the ones that were posted recently, so that's been listed for a while and they've already filled.
So for HIM?
Yeah,
No, not yet. It was just newly launched, but now it's been included among the 4 other positions.
So I was wondering if we were ahead on that or not.
And there's also some questions with the existing faculty that we have in HIT, whether or not it would necessitate that we have at least one of those members, I think it's Shauna Sweeney, who may have to get some leave time in order to be able to take on the program director's position that's required for accreditation. So lots of details that we need to discuss if this is going to launch. Oh, here we go, folks. All right, and just wanted to put it on your radar as well. Coming back on April 8th, ENR will be sending their rankings to us. Jamie Campbell, however, has some good news to report that aside from 3 items that are also up for funding, much of this was covered by strong workforce and lottery funds. I think that you have.
And the ranking was very, very easy. And it came to very, very little money.
So this will likely be an easy consent item that we're going to deal with. ITC is also going to have its rankings forthcoming on April 22 as well. We are coming down to the wire, folks. We'll have to decide after May 6th whether or not we want to keep the May 13th meeting. It is tentatively scheduled on your calendars, but we may have some lingering business to take care of before we end the semester and before I end my time as academic senate president.
Well, looks really happy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And Elizabeth's going, oh, shit.
Welcome, Senate, long existed before me, folks, everything will be. All right, folks, so that's my academic senate president's report. Just putting it on your radar also for communications that Paloma Arnold will not be joining us for today. She is away at a conference. And so just turning to Keller. Keller, do you have anything out of the BPAA's office?
We're not doing much. We just eliminate that position. Yes, please.
Yes.
I have been doing a whole lot of getting things wrong and barely getting reports in on time for things. Did get a couple of state mandated reports in literally within hours of the deadline this week. So I feel like I'm failing spectacularly at this job. And therefore, because I've been so under the gun, I don't have a written report, but I just have two things to update you all on. The first is, this is the first report of other possibilities, but I wanted to at least bring this to you all, that starting in the fall, the West Campus food will be available until 6 p.m.
Which is great, although it's not like starting. We've always had it till 6.
It has not been open until 6 for a while.
Oh, I'm very aware of that. I'm just saying it'll go back to.
I would like to say, as a first step, I'm happy to report that is being open again.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
That's great.
I have to report only that is available starting in the fall. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Let's hope.
Is that it? You had two things.
I do have another thing, which is simply, actually Josh has mentioned this already, which is that all 5 of the jobs have been posted. When it initially went up, there was a little problem with where they were posted. So all of that has been corrected. They are all in the right place. The HIT position had to wait until we had the state approval, and then that has also gone up. And the only thing I have to say about that is I didn't realize that when those went up, there wasn't another email to go out to the whole campus. So I just copied Dan's original email and sent it to you this afternoon. I know that many of you use that to forward the jobs. So that's available to you. And if there are any typos or anything, that's me flying in under the radar. So apologies if it's not perfect. Yes.
Question for the tables, but just saying, are we using him and HIT synonymously, or is him in the program and HIT's the faculty position? Or
I believe that latter to be the case.
Okay.
Health information management is the baccalaureate. I think the faculty are HIT faculty. That is my understanding of it, but listen, I've been wrong a lot this week, so.
That's the way that I understand it.
I have a quick question, which is, let's all hope for success for all 5 of those positions.
Yeah.
But if, by chance, there is like the failed search, which
Yep.
has happened,
Yeah,
what would be the process for, I would hope, guaranteeing that we would be able to go out again?
there would be really no reason to not go out for those positions. The positions have been committed.
Great, okay.
And I have had one department, sorry, let me remember which department we discussed this with. Biomedical science. They were concerned that we were going out so late for a position to be hard to fill. They initially said, should we even be trying in the spring? Should we just wait till the fall? I said, please, don't not do that.
Right.
So what I said to them was, the positions are open for their mandated period of time. If it's looking like the pool is not robust, then let's talk about extending the deadline rather than just going with a not fully robust pool and having all your faculty effort to go through the process and potentially have a failed search. So if your position, if you feel the same, like we just don't quite have the pool we want, let's extend it for a while.
And just as a point of clarification, would we be able to review the applications that we have, say on April 12th, and then make that decision, or are we just find lines and saying, well, we only had 4 people who came out, we presume it's not enough?
I have to say, that's a better question than I have a full answer for. Because I think you have to constitute the committee before you can actually see the applications. But sorry, I don't remember this AP by heart. HR does some pre-screening for min quals, right?
Correct.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
They do, but if there's equivalency, then we give them.
Yeah, okay. So I think if on the 12th, you will at least be able to get within 2 days, I would say, some status update from HR. And if it looks like, your 7 applicants just became 2 or 3, I think it's your call, right? Do we actually want to keep it open longer?
Okay.
But I can also check, Dan is away right now, so I can't message him right now, but I can see, what their options are. Kathy.
Has the information gone out to the department chairs on establishing their committee and the process and
yeah.
who's in charge?
Yeah.
Not really.
No, that's not really.
It should be coming from your dean. Your dean should be, okay.
We heard about the committee, but I have to say, having been part of many, many hiring committees,
Mhm.
this one is quite different so far. Like, I have not received a timeline. I've not received a whole sequence of what happens.
Right.
Was told, get your committee together,
Yep.
and I have looked at the AP.
Okay,
But that's the only thing I've gotten is a directive, get your committee together, that's it.
and, okay.
No training, no information about
That
it.
usually comes from HR too, and not.
Yeah, you're right. And well, I did ask the deans to make sure that if you needed anything, that like get your committees together, let us know if you need anything. I'm hearing it now.
Yeah, there's
So-
a whole process they put us through.
Yeah.
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 Normally.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I'm aware of the
Yeah.
process. I was not aware that it wasn't happening.
No, it's not been happening.
So let me, I don't keep things in my brain. You hear that from me all the time, especially in the afternoons. So let me just take a note that this is another thing I've got to get with Dan about next week. There may be some, I don't know whether this is a thing falling through the cracks or if it's that there was a consultant who was charged with running these.
I was told,
Recruitment.
Dan said to me explicitly, he was a point person, not a consultant.
Okay,
Which I appreciate that he's doing it, but it does also seem like a lot for him.
yep.
And I'm sorry to take a sentence.
Nope, this is important for me to know, because if I don't know this, what am I doing about it? I'm doing
It's
nothing.
important for all of us to are concerned about the viability of this call. By process, we used to have an internal call to the campus as well with PDF files for the job description. We did not see that this time. I did follow up with Dan about that as well. He said that they are moving away from the PDF files. And they are pointing to the school job site that we have online, so that this comes together. Barbara, please.
I apologize, I'm gonna circle back to the food options. And I know Keller's getting the brunt of all of this, but could you, Keller, since you have not been in the emails that I have been dealing with here with Chris Rumberger and Joshua and Eric and Laura last time and Paul Miller, I said in my last message that I understood staffing issues. And that we would like to explore vending machine options. Paul Miller said he would be willing, and she said, I'm open to it. Could we make sure we pursue that? Because we still have a lot of school left this semester, and even next semester, I hope we're open till 6, but why not have an alternative? Why not have an alternative? And I think that if Betsy were here, she would remind everybody that most of the ESL classes meet at night.
Agreed.
Thank you.
And again, if we are going to explore less than conventional scheduling, off-peak hours, we need to serve those students. Amenities matter. All right, everyone, because Vice President Arnold will not be here, she is at a conference, I'm going to move on with liaisons reports. Taking a look at this week's reports, we have some updates from ITC, PNR. We have already mentioned one update from them from the Academic Senate President's report and a safety meeting. Kitty, is this yours to take away?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, ITC's ranking, and they are, like many of us on campus, concerned about the possibility of a Microsoft migration, and I know you have sent out a Google form about that, and maybe we'll talk about it some more later, I guess we will. There are various, things that we've been doing at PNR. The PNR has recently taken over issues pertaining to space allocation, which has been really successful for that committee. And in fact, we had a long-going concern about the Construction Academy program moving into space at the theater, had occupied for about 15 years. No, what am I talking about? 40 years. That we had been in for about 40 years. And PNR really worked to come up with a great solution with that, so everybody's happy. And as we already know, the PNR has completed its ranking. It's a very short ranking.
Okay, thank you so much, Katie. Just taking a look at the rest of the doc, do we have any other liaisons reports? Stephanie, or?
Oh, just a quick one. Yeah, FPSS is still working on putting together content for a study session regarding tutoring, for example, like student impact of tutoring and the campus structure that supports tutoring. But we haven't been able to confirm a date and time from the Board of Trustees yet.
So the last mention of that at the board was at the previous meeting shortly after my Senate report. Jonathan had motions to the rest of the trustees to say, please look into your calendar availability for either April 22nd or 24th. That's a Wednesday and a Friday. Dave Morris, I was expecting to come in for a public comment, but he had inquired also about whether or not this was set up. That made me wonder who's really leading the charge when it comes to the conversation. If I do not hear from them from after spring break, then I will send another message to trustees to be able to say, hey, at least on tutoring, please let's discuss getting together. Because we do have faculty on FPSS, we do have staffers, and we do have some tutors as well who want to be part of that discussion. There's room for English and math to roll into that conversation as well. That would be great.
Not during the day.
Not during the day. So
That's why we suggested the dinner.
working dinner, which I also mentioned.
I know. I assume there's been no.
Haven't heard from them.
Of course not.
FPSS was pretty open about the availability or what time of day.
Yeah.
We would be willing to offer it on a Wednesday or a Friday. So we're just waiting to hear back before we understand what our time window is and how to proceed accordingly with that and respect that window of time.
Great.
Yeah, and academic policies, well, you saw the AP 5550 on AI. We worked on it as a group a couple of sessions ago. So what the committee is working on now is the salary class transfers. There are 4 employees on campus that have put in for a class transfer, and that's what the committee will be working on at the next couple of meetings.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I like totally forgot to do my written thing. So CAC, and you can add if I forget or whatever. So because of the HIM thing, they're gonna have to develop, courses and things, so that's on the radar. And then we're gonna have more discussions about this, but there's also talk about looking at the online class sizes thing. Like saying how many people you have to have in an online class compared to an in-person class, because there have been some requests to decrease that for some classes. They're talking about that, and then they're also talking about how they have a ton of work to do, and it would be nice if they had more people. So talking about getting additional non-voting members to help with all the work that they have going on.
What day does that mean? Mondays.
Mondays, yeah.
Great.
Yep.
What kind of help do they need?
Reviewing courses.
Yeah, reviewing courses, and then that's mostly it, right?
We have some divisions that just have a disproportionate number.
Yeah.
So one rep isn't really cutting it, it's just.
They have so many courses to review.
expand, but we're also looking to think ahead, because it's such a steep learning curve for anybody who comes on CAC. And when we know we have an outgoing member of CAC, it would be nice for a year or something, mentor with them. But we have those extra positions and we thought we should use them. And, well, yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. You know, we have one division that just has like 300% courses that are paid also. It's just, you know, it's the humanities, so. They had it before, before, and just, what is really the main constitution customers of thinking of ways. Course proposal and being able to back. You know, you're one person, can't typically keep them all with faculty, if the course outline of record has gotten more and more complicated. More and more piece of paper that Title V change. It really requires more hands-on work with faculty so that we don't have a lot of constant back and forth. No, this is wrong, trying to step in before we get there, but we need more problems for that.
Does the work happen during committee or does it happen outside the committee?
The meeting with faculty often, I will be honest with you.
Outside
of that, as you know.
I was saying, just throw this out here, I would be willing, I live in curriculum a lot and I love curriculum, I'm a fucking weirdo. So I love it and I work with people anyways on SLOs, so I'm very familiar with CurricuNet and stuff, so if you want me to start coming and start working, I would be happy.
Okay, I want to subsume Laura from all the 139 PE courses that we have to do.
I'm gonna claim your impact too.
Yeah.
I love your.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
great.
start coming, I'll put it on my calendar.
You'd be great.
I'll start
You
coming.
actually do need a lot of.
Is that fast?
And Kathy can back in on that. The staff level.
I've heard the staff level is pretty high.
Yeah, Tara does a great job of bringing.
I've heard it's pretty good.
Charcuterie. Oh,
I've
wow.
I've heard it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yes,
Makes the top.
yes. Well, I have to be here anyway. I might as well be doing something productive, not just
That's right.
fucking reading emails.
The next
You're
meeting
hired.
is until April 20th.
April 20th, all right. Can someone get on the invite?
We have a
It's a tech review, but I mean the real,
We have a meeting April 6th.
it's tech review though, right?
Yeah, but she should come.
Oh, then you should still come.
Can you add me, can you do an invite,
Yes.
add me to it?
I'll do it right now. You are taken before you change.
Yeah, no, good, put me on.
Aaron, I know you know this, but every once in a while in curriculum, it seemed like it was necessary just to have a rep meet with the department
No,
Do that.
and have everybody, the faculty who have courses in review on their computers,
yeah.
going through and doing them at once. So in that batch, and that doesn't happen during CAC meetings, it happens like some other time. And you get like 30 courses knocked out in an hour.
Yeah.
It's just so efficient.
Not
But
with the new DEIA questions, it's not gonna be an hour.
well,
The question is really struggling for people and in the past, we had so few courses that really was a team talk. So I'll just say it
Yeah.
has become. The reps in the past, there were a couple things you had to kind of look out for, we could knock them out pretty quickly, but those are just.
whatever challenge is going to be operative in that breakout work group format is going to be operative for the whole group and even more cumbersome. Anyway, that's just my experience.
Everyone is trying to keep us on time here. We do have a time-stamped item for discussion. We do have a guest here as well. Melanie Rogers is here because she is going to be addressing us about our latest HCG report that is at 3:40. Want to be able to just go through these informational items. Some of this will be familiar to you. And we also do have an update out of BCC as well about Starfish. So with regard to our routine review of BPs and APs, this should look familiar to you, AP 7151. If you'll recall, it was in spring 2025 that we had modified the language for the 5 performance criteria for faculty evaluations. That has since made its way through the BPAP process. Just to let you know how that worked, folks, while we were working in the Senate to be able to update that language, we also had a new BPAP process that was working in parallel as well. All of these BPs, even if we are these BPs and APs, even if we as a body are going through and approving some of the suggested language, it is still feedback that has to make its way through to BPAP. So when it comes to AP 7151, it is coming back around to us, but we are the primary constituent group. If there was a delay, it was because, one, there are some items there that are under negotiation with the FA. So we have parsed that out from the changes that we want in the 5 performance criteria. The only other addition that we wanted, if you'll recall, we changed the language from satisfactory to meets or exceeds expectations. The challenge, however, was we needed to make sure that that language was not just included in the 5 performance criteria, it was presented throughout the entire document. So those are the only substantive changes that will once again come to us. I don't think that it's going to be hard to suggest, let's move this forward. The only other one that I really want to draw to your attention is AP 2410. That's on board policies and administrative procedures themselves. This is the documentation that clearly outlines for us whenever there is a BP or AP that is up for modification, that this outlines the process from beginning to end. There's a reason why this has not been modified since 2018. And even then it was just legal language here and there. But this is the process by which the campus abides by, particularly when there's an administrative procedure that may come up against a legal requirement. And also what latitude the superintendent president has as well to say, look, we are out of compliance. We have to be able to change this. But there were also those on BPAP who had expressed, because there may be unforeseen consequences to modifying an AP, that there should at least be constituent inputs before a change is made immediately. So those are some things that you might want to take a look at. Plus, also, we have a flowchart that has been reformatted by our own Rita Boss. We had to notice that she is also taking minutes. She's just taking minutes remotely for us. But this flowchart has been updated. You may want to take a look at steps 4 to 5 to see how any decision making bounces back to constituent groups as we try to meander through whether or not an AP is in need of modification. So please have a look at AP 2410. This is one that has been pushed off from getting to constituents because members of BPAP had argued vehemently back and forth about how this should look. That we got to this point and that it's now circulating was the culmination of months and months of protocol. So please have a look at this. This is how our administrative procedures and our board policies are executed. Barbara, please.
This is just, I'm not sure I'm reading it properly. Please provide your feedback by Friday, March 27. Is that AP 7151 right under it?
I think that should be for 2410. Here it is, April 10.
Okay, so what's the March 27 one up
The
there?
March 27 one only applies to 7150.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Yes.
Those go together and then okay. And so the 2410, that is,
We still have time.
okay, and then that's the April 10.
Yes,
Okay.
please. And again, the one for AP 7151, we've already looked at this.
Right.
We're just trying to move it along. Kathy, please.
So I'm sorry if I missed something here, but 2410 is not been modified?
It has been, that's the clean copy.
Oh, okay,
And-
so
and
we
a
haven't
lot of the
made
bullet points.
changes.
Correct.
Is there any way that we can get the copy, or did you have that in a previous agenda that I can look at?
We do have a backlog of the different versions of 2410. Is it possible to?
Sorry.
On the BPAP agenda, so you could.
I can pull up that
Make
one.
that link.
I can go ahead and send that in.
I just looks like the flow.
I know.
No, I just, no, because I wanna know what was changed in this
It's
policy.
because
I
of
mean,
this.
it doesn't have any of
Sure.
the changes, so it's hard to know if we like them or not.
We can also look at them side by side when this returns for discussion. I want to
Okay,
make sure that
okay, all
We
right,
have that by April 8th.
okay, excellent.
Okay. So folks, it is 3:40. Christie, if I may just impress upon your update, if we can take this out of order so that we can have Melanie, who's here to present. And then we will return to that information line. Okay, Melanie, I'm gonna go ahead and pull up your update with regard to our ACCJC report. And the floor is yours. Would you like to pilot this or shall I do the scrolling?
Either way, I guess I can come up there, so. You have a letter?
Feel free.
Do you want me to start? Yeah, sure. I'll start with
Kelly's
just.
gonna do an intro.
I'll start with just a little bit.
Just out here, see.
Draft policy.
I just want to give you the high level overview about what this is and also something that I brought to you all last year, not as VPA, obviously, about plans for improving this process so that it is better in keeping with 10+1 consultation. And so that we get better input early from the faculty. That was a proposed improvement that we will be able to implement next year. So what is this? Every year, ACCJC requires us to report on our outcomes on specific student success metrics. We also have an annual fiscal report. We don't do anything with it. It just goes in at the same time. And so these are standard metrics that are set by ACCJC. And the process of, so we report on those. And we also have to set our own goal levels. What they call them are the floor goal and your aspirational goal, right? You're probably familiar with these because you've seen them before, right? In the past, this is all before me, so feel welcome to correct me if I've got the details wrong, but it's our understanding from our historical review of what was done in the past. What we do currently in setting those goals is we look at a history of like a 3 to 5 year, right? 5-year history. And then we take an average of that 5-year history. And then we look at, for our floor goal, we don't want to go more than 1 standard deviation below that average. And for our aspirational goal, we had like a 2.5. Is it 2.5% above?
We add half a standard deviation to the max.
To the max, yeah, okay. So that was an algorithm that was developed with researchers and brought through CPC, was ratified many years ago. And then a couple of years ago, I said, I think it's a defensible methodology, but it's probably not enough because it doesn't take into the account the context of your expertise, your wisdom, and your knowledge of what's going on in the classroom, and also for student services, what's going on their end to serve students. So I had hoped this would happen this year. If we had been able to get our PRT grant completed in a year, we would have then started the Institutional Effectiveness Committee back in its original intent of being a participatory governance committee that provides input on student success, on our metrics, on what questions we should be, all kinds of stuff. We are finishing that grant process this year. That committee was co-opted for that grant, and next year we will begin again meeting as Institutional Effectiveness Committee, a participatory governance committee. And what we will be doing for this at that time is early in the academic year, we will be looking at the data from the prior year. We'll be looking at what do we get when we do the standard algorithm that was approved by the college. And we'll say, all right, these are our floor and ceiling based on the algorithm. What do you want us to know? What do we think we should be considering? If this is happening over here and let's say, I don't want, anyway, you get the gist of what I'm saying. If there's something really great happening in counseling that we think is going to increase completion, for example, fully implementing degree works or StartVision, those persistence, right?
Yeah.
There's all kinds of initiatives that are out there with the faculty in what you're doing with your teaching, what student affairs is doing. We want to bring all of that to bear on the conversation. And we want to say, with the context and with your expertise, how do we adjust the methodology of our numbers? And what do we want to set for this metric as our floor, as our aspirational or ceiling? So that will be happening next year. It will be happening early in the year because we're setting goals. Eventually, I'd like to be doing it sort of this time of year for next year, but it'll take us till next spring to be able to do that. So in the fall, we will be setting our goals for that academic year in that process. For this time, for this last annual report that we're doing this method, Melanie is presenting literally what our average is and that algorithm for our floor and our ceiling goals. That'll be the last time that we do it without input and content and consultation. So
Can I just ask a quick question? In terms of where we've changed maybe some pedagogical norms in terms of raising class caps?
Yes.
Is that data gonna be included? Once we're able to do the committees again, or?
So that's a more complex question than just the annual report. And for that, that's a bigger question that is totally appropriate for IEC. I like how you think about research. So for ACCJC, they determine what our methods are, right? We have our definitions that we can explain to them, but you'll see them, you'll see what the metrics are. We have some additional institutional metrics that we are tracking as well. For example, ACCJC doesn't ask us about transfer level math and English within a first attempt, past student passing. We have that as a metric. Now, what we are currently using are definitions that have been closely hewing to the state chancellor's methodology and definition, which is a totally defensible way to do it, particularly because there's so much that's tied to the student-centered funding formula. And there is also, are those definitions and those metrics serving our needs to make decisions, including pedagogical decisions? So what you're asking about is, are we going to track things like increasing class size and is there an impact on student success? I think that's basically what you're getting at. Totally, that is a legitimate area that the Institutional Effectiveness Committee will be looking at. And part of the way I've done this in past colleges is the committee itself defines the agenda for what metrics do we want to say, we don't think this one's working for us. Here's what we need more of. So that will be part of that committee. It won't be part of this process for ACCJC. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I understood from before when you showed us this data that it was a template and it's like, the only way to compare is to have everybody doing the same thing. So I totally got that, but I'm just like wondering going forward, because that's a big change that we've tried to make.
Absolutely, and it is exactly what should be happening both at the institutional level, but certainly in program review as well, right? That you have access to those data and you can be doing that. Yeah, and that's exactly the kind of stuff that you will be doing.
Yes, and Elizabeth, when you were talking about the online classes, you're talking about broadly, right? Of looking at all, like, how big.
Just the policy of setting the class size.
Okay,
The online class size.
Yeah, okay.
That was what CAP was talking about.
Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to the expert.
Thank you, Kelly, for that great introduction and explanation. And just also let folks know that when we're reporting to the ACCJC every year, we're reporting on the prior year. So the data that are going in, it's due in April, are for 24-25. So just thinking in the future, when we're meeting in IEC and we're discussing what should our goals be, that's always like a forward thinking process, and we're always reporting to the annual report on the prior year. So I have to almost keep 2 timeframes involved. Okay, so these are the 6 metrics that we are required to report to ACCJC. The first one, course completion, probably everyone's very familiar with this one. This is just the percentage of successful grades out of all grades. The second one is certificates, which is just a straight count of how many certificates were awarded in an academic year. And that's not number of students. So we know sometimes students get multiple certificates. We're just counting number of certificates. So if someone received 2, we count those 2. The third one is associate degrees. And for this one, we use a cohort-based model. So we're tracking students who are first-time students in a fall semester, and we follow them for 3 years to see how many of them completed an associate degree within that 3-year period. And we report it as a percentage. And for transfer, we're looking at the number of students who had a transfer-oriented goal for their educational goal, and then how many of them transferred to a 4-year institution within 1 year of either completing a degree or achieving transfer ready status, which is defined as completing 60 or more transferable units, completing transfer level English and math and with a 2.0 GPA. So that's our definition of transfer. And as Keller said, we can indicate on our report how we're defining some of these things. So if we, again, meet as a committee and decide we don't like that definition of how we're reporting transfers, let's change that. We can change it, and then we just let ACCJC know in our report, this is our definition of how we're reporting our transfer figures to you. But those are the categories we are required to report, and to some degree we have. For course completion, we don't have any wiggle room in certificates, but for the other ones, we can define how we're reporting those.
And if I can interrupt and say as a little, what is it saying, like it's a Easter egg? No, it's a looking forward. Transfer, we've been talking about our transfer definition and whether it's serving our needs for decision making and figuring out how to get better and all of that. And so that is a topic that we want to bring to IEC. We should not be making those decisions without your input. So transfer is a metric that we'd really like to explore with you all. Yeah.
So I'm assuming that if a student declares that they're on an associate degree path, but they end up getting a certificate. I mean, we're obviously going to count the certificate completion, but then do we count the degree as a failure? Like, is it in the percentages that they didn't get the degree?
You go ahead and answer. So
Does that make sense?
the certificates are just the number in the year.
Right.
So they would get counted as one certificates. I think you're asking about number
So
3. like
everything's
the social
positive,
security.
yeah. So I mean, everything is a positive, it's not a negative. If they don't get a degree, it doesn't negatively affect any of our numbers.
Well, the way we're currently defining this, and again, this is open for discussion of how we want to refine our definitions possibly. But currently, we're taking first-time student cohorts from who came in a fall semester. And then they complete a degree within 3 years.
Any degree, not the degree they declared.
Correct. Did they get an AA, an AS, or a degree for transfer?
Or a certificate, if they got a certificate, that's gonna count towards the certificate.
Well, that'll count as a number 2, but not a number 3. So the
But that-
percentage will be calculated based on the cohort.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, so the transfer thing, we transfer students without.
Yeah, that's exactly what we've been talking about.
And without both transfer level English and math.
Oh, that's exactly what we've been talking about. So that's a item for IEC next year. It's one of the first things we want to talk.
How do the other schools do that?
Oh, it's all over the place. It's so all over.
Yeah, there's different ways of defining transfer. So this is not, like I said, this isn't a universal definition that's dictated by them and we all do it. Like, no.
Okay.
Colleges,
But I would say, here's how I handled it at Oxnard when I was there, was, look, we get money for transfers. And so let's do two things. Let's make sure we're tracking what we're getting from the student-centered funding formula. And then let's also sit around the table and say, what other questions? What else do we need to know? How do we make a definition that is better for us in our pedagogical decision-making, our student services decision-making, et cetera. And we defined a separate transfer. I can't even recite it to you now, but we did that. And that's what I think we should do.
I agree.
Everyone, if we can let Melanie do her presentation. We are setting aside time afterwards for her to be able to answer some
Yeah,
questions.
sorry.
Because we also have Israel class coming at 4:15 as well.
Oh. Yeah, all right.
Okay.
So that's, go Melanie, don't worry.
So, and the last 2 items that we're required to report are specific to our CTE programs. So one of them is that we have some programs where the students complete the program and then they have to pass a licensure exam in order to work in that field. So we report on those, and also we track students who have completed or left the program to see if they're employed within their field in the following year.
Thank you.
So methodology, I'll save a few minutes because Keller already did a very good job of explaining how we're doing that. We can track a 5-year average. And then for the floor, we're looking at 1 standard deviation below that average. And our stretch goal is half a standard deviation above the maximum for that 5-year period. And then the action rate, of course, is the rate for that. So these aren't this big enough for everyone to see. So now I'm going to just go into each of those metrics and show that these are just screenshots of the PDF file that I'm using to complete our report for this year. So we make it. So
I'm trying.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, Zoom.
Yeah, this is, maybe it's.
Oh, down here, it's down here.
Okay.
Sorry, this mouse and my having too much sugar, they're not going well together. So now get her back.
We saw having one sugar.
It was your donut, I needed a donut.
So this is what the report looks like. We're required to report on this 3-year period, although those first 2 years were already reported on the previous report. So the new data we've added are just for this year is the 24-25. And you see those 3 categories are, we're reporting on what is our floor, what is our aspirational goal, and then what's our actual. So for course completion, you can see that for last year, our floor was set at 75%, our stretch goal was 77%, and our actual course completion rate was 76%.
Oh, we made some progress. Over the prior year.
We're pretty consistently 76.
And so for certificates, for 24-25, our floor was to have 1, 2, 3, 4 certificates. Sorry, I'm such a math nerd. I love when things like that. Our stretch goal was to have 1642, and our actual certificates awarded was 1475.
Oh, well, that's pretty good.
Looks like it was down slightly from the year prior.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
For our associate degrees, we set our floor at 21%. Within that 3-year period, our stretch goal was 24%, and then this year or last year's rate was 24%.
It looks like we reached our aspirational goal for the first time and
Seems so low.
There's a little bit of, I did wonder like, oh, did we reach our goal? It's a little bit like the aspirational goal rounded down to 24%. And the actual rate rounded up to 24%, so they're teasing it apart, but pretty close.
Someone's arm and leg.
We got it. Yeah. Okay, and then for our transfer rate, our floor was set at 55%, and the stretch goal was 69%, and then our actual is 63%.
Oh, well, that's better.
Pretty good, even with
And
our weird.
it looks like it's increasing, right? 54, 63?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know you said this before, but I was clicking on the plus and then I realized it was a screenshot. You said a percentage of students transfer and you said with college math and English, and that's the part. That's it, but that is what it is now.
That is the denominator.
Yes.
And then we say of those students, how many transferred to a 4-year college or a university within 1 year of that?
Which is the funding for.
What was talking about is we might change that definition entirely and capture more of our.
Right, right, but I know the funding formula.
Funding formula is really different.
It's different, but that's what we look at. I get it. Okay, thank you.
And then for the last 2, I will have the information by the time we submit the report. I don't have them all out yet. So this is what the form looks like, and we do, each of the programs has set their own floor and aspirational goals. And then again, we report their licensure exam pass rates for those last 3 years. And then same with the employment rates. The employment rates, our source for this is actually, it's Chancellor's office.
I was gonna say, where do you get the data? How do you track this?
So this is based on students who either leave the program or complete, and then following them within that next year, if they have an employment record, and it comes up in the Perkins, 4 and 5 core indicators. So yeah, we kind of have to rely on the data for that, and I believe we ran into a little bit of a hiccup in their data, so and looking into that.
There is better data coming, like the chancellor's office is, it's not perfect.
Yeah.
The chancellor's office has contract with EDE, so they can, but then we're not tracking the entrepreneurs and but we're getting better.
Right, yeah, I looked into the definition, Nicole's more familiar with it than I am, but it does track people who get military employment, like there's a couple of places they look, but it's probably not perfect. That's really cool. Questions? Yeah.
Good, yeah. So my big question was the associate degree in 3 years, when the majority of our students are part-time. And that just seems like a very short window for a part-time student to achieve an associate
And you are hereby invited to come to IEC. Because that's exactly the kind of thinking we need. I'm 100% in agreement.
Are the majority of our students part-time?
Yeah.
Over
Yeah.
50%, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And financial aid is starting to do things.
We
And
would
like
love
the
it.
SBCC promise there.
I was gonna say,
Yeah,
I promise we would love for them to acknowledge.
Yeah, they need to acknowledge at least 3 years.
So, yeah, and as Keller mentioned, we have, so these are the 6 metrics we're required to report. We have 6 additional metrics that we track internally. So.
And we've defined that? We define how long it takes, or is it defined by the state?
So again, like it is wise of us to be looking at what happens when we look at only the state metrics and define our own way of measuring so that we,
It's us.
yes,
That makes
exactly.
Okay.
Now, some of this is not in fact strictly, in fact, a lot of it isn't the student-centered funding formula. What is here now in the definitions is legacy definitions from, we don't know how long ago. But you know, that's why we're gonna have the IEC, because it's time to get around the table and figure out what information do we need so we can. Yeah.
On the transfer data, do we feel like we have really good data for students going to private schools and out-of-state schools?
We didn't used to, but we do now.
And do we give them a semester or a year grace before we actually, some students will take a year out or a semester out? If there's any way to compensate for that?
Yes, when we make our definition that makes sense for us, absolutely, because sorry, go ahead, Mel.
No, that's fine. So currently, our definition that we settled on is looking at when did they achieve transfer ready status or complete degree? And then the clock starts ticking, so to speak, to say within 1 year did they transfer. We can change that to.
Do the exit AA degrees make any difference on?
What?
Well, we have transfer, we have degrees,
Yeah.
local degrees,
Yeah.
and are sort of exit
Yeah.
degrees.
Yeah.
Versus our transfer. So if a student's getting an exit degree.
Or do they count in the
Do
denominator?
they count, yeah,
So maybe now, but they don't have to when we decide the definition.
yeah, because they shouldn't be counted
That's right.
against the transfer stuff.
And one of the things we did at Oxnard was the very thing of acknowledging our part-time students. So we used to measure only, you know, actually, I think the Oxnard measurement was originally from start of program to like, I don't know, 4 years, something like that. And we said, you know, and the language used to be within 150% of normal time, which I find really offensive if you're
Yeah.
dealing with, you know, if you're dealing with
normal. anyway.
yeah, and so we ended up tracking much farther out.
Okay.
So that we could capture the time it takes for the students who are on a transfer path and are part-time.
Rosabeth, you have your hand up, please.
Okay, so I think Danielle actually answered my question, but I still have a question, and that is, so we do get money for transfers. And then my question was, do we get money for people who finish the certificates? And Danielle said yes. However, the question for me at this moment is why it appears to me that the focus is only on transfers. I don't hear much discussion on the certificates.
I think the certificates are pretty well defined and the transfer is a little bit more, not obscure, but like you have students, accounting is a really good one because there is not a degree for transfer for accounting. There's only a business admin transfer. So what a lot of students will do, and if you look at the course, like what they have to take, they basically come and get their associates in accounting because they're like, hey, I can have an AS in accounting. I'm like, yeah, and you can go make a hell of a lot more money than you have a degree and you're going to transfer. So they're kind of simultaneously. So they walk out with an associate's, but they're really a transfer student because they're really going to go transfer to a 4-year and get their credits they need to sit for the CPA exam. So that's where like, that's just one little example where there's this obscurity of like, they're working on an AS degree because there is no transfer for their program by definition. They're gonna take their AS, and then there's some that don't, that came to be a bookkeeper, that get an AS, and then they go, I kind of like this, I kind of want to do more, and then within a year, they actually end up transferring, and so that would be something that we might want to capture. Where like the certificates, like if you look at an accounting certificate, it's pretty cut and dry, they're smaller units, they're here to do something. If they want to move on to an AS or they want to move on to transfer, like there's a substantial steps that they have to take. So I think that's why we're not talking about certificates, is because certificates is pretty clear and pretty cut and dry. We're like AS versus transfer and like how you count them, there's a little bit more obscurity. At least that's how I would see it in our area.
And I guess I would add, I'm not sure I understand what the concern of your question is, but I would say that both ACCJC and the Chancellor's Office metrics and our own metrics are all looking at all various types of students' success.
Right.
So we are counting those certificates. And so all of those metrics matter because we know that we don't have one size fits all students. If your concern is that we haven't been talking about the definition for transfer certificates, I would say, again, that's a great topic for the Institutional Effectiveness Committee. And we might want to look at, we're literally just counting them. We might look at a cohort model to say, if you start by this time, how much time to, what's our rate of completion? We might want to look at those, but those are all based on what questions do we want to ask in order to measure how we're doing with students, to say, are we serving our students best? What else might we do?
I think my question where I'm not clear is, let's say for a program like Russell Heads Up, it's clear that his students, when successfully completing their certification, they are job ready. And just the example Laura gave, thank you, that helped clear it up a little bit, is that the students could do a bookkeeping certification and then they're job ready, because not every student can afford to just transfer to a 4-year school. They need to have a job to help work their way through college. So I think we could possibly serve that student better.
That's the CTE criteria.
Right.
There's a question, one of the elements of data that's being collected is the career technical education element, and that's saying who has gotten a job in their field.
Mm-hmm.
So it is we're not discussing it, but it is being captured. It's number 6. Correct. And number 5.
Although, Russell can correct me, there isn't an exam for the automotive that I'm aware. It's not.
There's the AST.
It's not a requirement,
Right.
right? Yeah, so there's no license, there is a certificate, industry certificate. And what I was gonna speak to, which you spoke well to, is we are tracking students. We have within our department a person that gets contact information, reaches out at 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years, and finds out, are they in industry, how long have they last, et cetera. The hard part is, students to contact.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
But we do the best we can.
Okay, it's just for on item number 5, as far as I know, it's not one of the ones that we're reporting.
We're correct.
We could
We could.
internally.
Got another one. But we are tracking number 2, which most just the automatic students
Yeah.
delete number 2.
Yeah.
Yes.
An annoying piece of minutia that I'm gonna hear from my department and division, on slide 6, associate degrees for 2022, 2023, the aspirational goal is like almost 9% higher than the subsequent years, and that doesn't track with any of the other data in this presentation. Was that some sort of weird COVID effect, or is that maybe a typo, or is that?
Which one?
33%, and then it drops to 24, and if you look at
stretch goal.
yeah, that's stretch goal. And then if you look at, like transfer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would honestly have to look back into that from 2 years ago because our data have changed. Sometimes things have changed. I know there was something about that that's a little weird to explain that. I just don't know off the top.
But that's the goal, not the actual achievement. So that could be a typo.
Yeah. It's just one of those elements in a report that if you're, if you're an evaluator, you're like, wow, why were they so far off the
Exactly.
goal?
Yeah, and also it doesn't track with our other years of, yes.
And the other types of data.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
Everyone, I just wanted to check the time here. We do have a time stamped item at 4:15. I do want to give Melanie a chance to be able to wrap things up as well. Are there any other things that you would request of the Senate before you close on this presentation?
That was all. I just wanted to present the information that's going to be reported to ACCJC, and if there were any questions or comments.
My ask would be, I hope that those of you who have spoken up a lot about the data and the definitions, that you'll be joining IEC next year.
Melanie, thank you.
It's really clear.
Thank you.
We are still time stamped at 4:15. Israel class has just arrived. Christy, you had an informational item to follow up about Starfish progress reports and the follow-up process that has been proposal.
I just wanted to let faculty know that we have heard from faculty that they don't hear much about what happens after the in danger of failing flags are reported. And in the past, we have not, we've been making calls and outreach to students, but we haven't closed the loop to faculty. So this year we're going to be closing the loop to faculty. So when we make the phone calls, we're just noting on the flag, phone call, message left, whatever. And after 3 attempts, then it will finish out, but we are having the phone callers track that in Starfish, so you should be able to see that.
Thank you.
But we don't know what the response is from the students.
You don't. It's like today, a counselor said, what do I do if the student made the appointment and then they no-showed? And I was like, put that on the flag, put their student made appointment, no-showed. And the date, and send that to the flag raiser. So the flag raisers should be getting some notification that follow-up's happening on their flags.
And to follow up on that, as the instructor who has that face-to-face contact, when I put it in the counselor's hands, I'm trusting that gets done, and it clearly is getting done. But without that loop closure, now I have the opportunity to speak to that student and say, hey, missed an appointment, the counselor's reaching out, hey buddy, you want to have that conversation, they're here to help you. So I can redirect.
Or you can say, you got a phone message, have you checked your messages?
Exactly, any of those.
Yeah.
As opposed to pestering, right?
Yeah, did you do this?
Right, which is a very different animal.
I do have a quick question, which I've tried to ameliorate by basically starting a contact sheet that I say it's optional to my students. But in the past, we chairs at least had access to an advisor's menu where we had the students' personal email and also their phone number to be able to text them, because a lot of people don't read email anymore. And that went away this year. And I guess the question is, I guess for you, do you think that's coming back? Because it was such a great, just as Christy's saying about the way that the preferred method is to phone or text for chairs as well. That was such I think, a better and more effective way to communicate with people and say, are you okay? We're worried about you, we miss you. We can still get you back on track, etc. And it was a tool that is unfortunately out of our toolbox at this point.
So I wish to hell the piece of information back here that's scratching my brain right now would come out, because I know I do have information on follow-up. I wish Paloma were here, because she would be able to speak. She was involved in that process change. I know there has been something done. I just can't tell you because it's back here.
They said it was a FERPA thing.
Well, I do know that there are some FERPA considerations, but I know there was an alternative solution. I just don't remember what that was.
Okay.
And I don't have a timeline for that. So perhaps bring that back when Paloma is here.
Perfect.
Because it's here in her brain, it's here in mine, because it's her wheelhouse.
Any last questions for Christy? Christy, thank you so much. Everyone, if I may draw your attention to item 7.2, this is a continuation of the discussion that we brought to bear on the prospective Google to Microsoft transition. In preparation for today's meeting, what I wanted to do was to make sure that we at least collected Senate and faculty leadership opinions with regard to this possible transition, and also to try to organize some questions for our new chief technology officer in Israel class. Just to give you an idea about what that looks like now, on screen for you, what we have is a summary of all 49 of the individuals from across the Senate, members of ITC. There were also some members of FPSS who also weighed in as well, members of ITC as well, for which overwhelmingly faculty have expressed their opposition to the move to Microsoft. There was at least one person in that group, and I can probably guess who that was, from the Teaching and Learning Committee. But otherwise, there were only 4 who had suggested maybe give it a shot, but I still want some more information. Others were only modestly opposed to this, but they want to learn more. Thematically, some of the things that came out of the AI notes from across all of the feedback that was actually presented on the forum. The things that popped out, one, they want an analysis of the cost breakdown. If it turns out that there is an anticipated savings, is it substantial enough to be able to move forward with this? The other, a big question was, have students, ASG in particular, been polled on this one? The other, because we have so many Google-based applications, including all of those YouTube videos that we had put together under the pandemic to humanize our instruction online, how much of that will be secured? And then there was also the question about the consultation process itself per shared governance. Another question that popped onto everybody's radar as well was this question about the timing of this as well. There are 2 things that I'd like to be brought into consideration. One, we are headed into an accreditation period. Yeah. I do have some concerns as we are trying to limp along just on regular substantive interaction for an external review of our online courses. Is this the time to be making this transition? And also, given the timeline to the end of Erica's tenure, at least for her existing contract, 2029, as things move, if you have a new superintendent president come in, a question came in, what if all of this decides to change back in the other direction as well? So there's a very critical question here about timing. But that's what I wanted to present, to just be able to weigh in here. Israel is joining us. We appreciate you being here as well. I'm hoping that you got a chance to at least see a sample of the questions that I ever sent. And so I will turn things over to you.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Oh.
I don't think I've met a lot of people here. I know a couple people here. So thanks for having me over. We're besties now.
We haven't had those margaritas yet.
Exactly. That's the problem. Gotta make that happen these days. Again, my name is Israel Class. I'm the new Chief Technology Officer for, what's the Paula Brady? That's not true. Santa Barbara. I was at Paula Brady before here. I'm probably a little less than 3 months into the job and been hitting the ground running. Assessing IT overall as, you know, what we have, what we don't have, what we need, what we don't need, that kind of stuff. And so, you know, trying to see the big picture in regards to IT, making sure IT is a business value to the organization, looking at redundancies, what systems we have that are duplicated, right? How can we improve our efficiencies? How are we going to improve on customer service and support? All that good stuff, right? And I know that I'm here to talk about the transition from Google to Microsoft, and you have a lot of questions. And so I reviewed some of the responses to the questionnaire, the survey that was sent out. We're not going into this blindly, right? We're not doing this tomorrow or anytime soon. Part of my assessment to see what we have, right, from a back end or back office operations. So for example, yes, we have Google, yes, we have Microsoft, but we also have a lot of third-party tools that we're paying for twice, right? Because we pay for Microsoft already. That's a given. Everybody gets Microsoft, right? All the full-time employees get Microsoft, right? That is the portal of Microsoft 365. But at the same time, you also get Google, right? Google Workspace. So what they've done in the past is pay for CrowdStrike, which is the antivirus. Know Before, which is a phishing simulation training, cybersecurity training module. What's another one? There's like 4 or 5 different systems that we're paying for, that we're also paying for on Microsoft. So what we're currently doing right now is looking at and evaluating and assessing all these back office systems that we have and start eliminating those things and move them over to Microsoft. So we no longer have to pay for these things, right? And save some money there and then start going on the Microsoft thing. The transition to Google, if we do it, right, will be a lot later. We will have start having discussion in the fall for a possible transition next year sometime. And when I say it's a transition, it'd be a phased transition. Not something that we're gonna do one night, on a Friday night, you're using Google, Monday morning, you're using Microsoft. No, it would not be that way, right? It'd be a phased transition. We will work with, so in the big picture, the way it's set up right now, we're in discovery. We're looking at, like I said, the back office operation stuff, the duplicate stuff with antivirus or whatever else. Start having those conversations in the fall with not only within IT, but also with different departments. So for example, FRC, ITC, the library, and anyone else that wants to be part of this.
Instructional,
yes.
thank you, yeah,
Absolutely.
let's remember that.
Absolutely, right? So we will talk with bunch of different people to see what's the best foot forward, right? And then work with external resources, consultants and other colleges that have transitioned off of Google onto Microsoft and see what their pitfalls were and how we can overcome those pitfalls. Find out what that approach is gonna look like. And then ultimately is, like I said, it'll be a phased approach. So maybe we get certain departments that go first, learn what the challenges were there, and then improve on going forward. So that by the time we get to instruction, we have learned everything there is to know, or as much as possible, and then we can make that transition. Those links that people are concerned about, right? That if you have stuff embedded in your curriculum, in your Canvas, whatever Word doc or Google Docs you have it in, or Google Drive, right? There are tools out there that will make the conversion from Google to Microsoft, right? And so that should alleviate some of the concerns about, I have a link already embedded in one of my documents that points to a Google Drive folder or document. There are tools that would help us do that migration. So we would test those way in advance to make sure that those tools actually work properly before we actually go on that back. We have a question here first.
Yeah, so my question is, my name is Katie and I represent arts departments. And my entire division is really, I guess, the technical term, freaking out. And so I appreciate that your expertise, which is, a billion times more than mine, but I'm just concerned because the way you're discussing it, this is happening. This is absolutely happening, even though we have, 87% of the people who filled out this form, and it wasn't sent to everybody, by the way. So we haven't even done like a full saturation to students and everyone on the campus, are strongly opposed to it. And it just, I guess it concerns me that we're nonetheless, despite all that opposition, we are on the train to this. And I guess what would it take to get off that train? I mean, is this absolutely, the way it's saying it feels like it's happening.
I didn't say it was happening, I said we are doing research in the fall.
Yeah, it sounds like you're telling us that this is
In the
happening.
fall, we will start having the conversation to see if that migration will happen. And if it does happen, it'll be later in 27 that would happen. There's a lot of discovery that needs to be done before we even start pulling the switch to make it happen, right? She had a question. Is that what your comment was?
Yeah, oh, no.
Was that what your comment or?
Yeah, but what Katie is saying is like the tone and language is clearly stating or letting me feel like, I don't know if anyone else is feeling, is that you're coming in here and telling us what we're gonna do. You say that, oh, well, we're gonna ask, we have this survey. She states that not everyone has gotten the survey. So not everyone's or thoughts have been, heard in that manner. And then it's like you're overlooking the whole instructional piece where Laura had to remind you about that. And then there is the whole thing where you have people who've been here for years that have put work and countless hours into developing these Google Drives. All of my work as a faculty member coming from other colleges transferred here. And you're going to tell us that we need to just pretty much trust the process and that whatever is in Google is going to transition over to Microsoft. If that does not happen, what is plan B? I mean, it's just the whole, I don't normally talk a lot in when I hear bullshit, I hear bullshit. And I'm not on board with that because haven't been a faculty member for almost 14 years for someone to just come in. I didn't even know who you were when you walked in the door and be like, oh, well, this is what's going to happen because it's going to save you money. I'm not on board with that.
So we also have a question from our Academic Senate President-elect, Elizabeth Imhoff.
I've stated my concerns about this in the past, and I do have to say I share the concern of my colleagues about the tone of this, and I hear what is incomplete information, and this idea that there are fixes to mitigate all of our concerns. And most of us are familiar enough with technology. Certainly we don't have your expertise, but most of us are familiar enough with technology to know that those fixes often don't work. And even if they don't work 5 or 10% of the time, that's 5 or 10% of my students who are facing difficulties, which will be obstacles to their success in my class. And what we're hearing from our board is that the top priority is student success. And what you're hearing from the faculty is we absolutely do not want to do this. And what I don't understand when we feel so strongly about this is why the conversation is continuing and why so many resources are being put into the exploration of something that the faculty is so clearly pedagogically against. And in addition to that, when you speak in the way you speak, like, we're doing this and we're doing this and we're doing this and we're doing all of these other things that are going to make it so our campus is entrenched in Microsoft, but don't worry, the decisions haven't been made yet. I don't feel a lot of confidence. And, what I would say to you, and I hope you hear this with respect and collegiality, is we're not going to do this. And we're not going to do this because we absolutely care about our students. And we see what's coming. We've seen things like this before. And so when we say to you, we absolutely do not want to do this, why is the conversation continuing?
And also to add to that, this is a faculty 10+1 matter.
Absolutely.
This is pedagogy. And by law, governing board is supposed to listen to the faculty's position for where we have primacy. I also want to invite Leo, you had a hand up for a student's perspective.
So thank you. I've had some experience in consulting along my years, and I'm grateful to be here at the school. Yet when I first went to one company that back in 2017, this is mirroring of something that happened a while back, where it were me who suggested upon request continue with Google Mail, or what email service, simple email service for a small company that we were scaling and growing to become one of the best in the industry. And or to, I pertain towards Microsoft Outlook. So we went ahead and made that change for 6 or 7 employees for a company that was not technically savvy, we'll call it, at the time. That shift was a change some maybe had their feelings about it, but it was just a few employees and a bit of Google Sheets, a few work, Excel spreadsheets that I were creating. We use Google Sheets, we use Microsoft Outlook for mail, it worked out, it was more professional, it was good. So when hearing these conversations, I've, in essence, to some degree, have been here before, but yet not in the essence of having had Google, this expansive circumstance already in place. And again, limitless, countless hours of work in place. And kindly enough and respectfully enough for the faculty and staff, when they hear that, you know, these conversations will begin in the fall, that the decision-making will begin in the fall, it's also that the reality that these conversations are already entailed and have already been in place. So when they hear that, oh, well, we haven't really started the decision-making process, it doesn't ring very well accurate, to say it kindly and respectfully. It just doesn't add up. It seems that they're being a bit, told one thing and shown another. Get to have not only their hearts in mind, but yes, the hearts of the students. Yes, there's a financial aspect to it. Yes, the college can save money. But one of the major things that I would like to offer to you is in the leadership position, along with Dr. Jonas, is that when the idea that only a few schools, city colleges, community colleges throughout California were using Google and most had been using Microsoft. Instinctively, I came across and say, well, hey, maybe that's a good reason. Say, well, you know what? If it saves money and we could go along with doing according to what most other schools are doing, maybe that does make sense, that holds credence. But yet, bouncing it off ASG, one of our leaders, and I won't say his name just out of respect, but one of our leaders made a great point. He said, well, since did Santa Barbara City College start doing just like what any other school would do? When did Santa Barbara City College, supposedly the #1 school, say, we don't want to spend extra funds to do what is a step up? It's that students have come back, and to surprise to me, that's why I mentioned the initial stage of how we've done this to Microsoft and Google before. In my idea, I think for my purpose, when I made that call for that company, that Microsoft was a step up. But in visiting with students, they don't believe so. A number of students feel that that would be a step down. And that might be some of the reason why the cost value is different. So they're implying to say, well, if it does cost a bit more for us to keep what students reflect is better for them, then maybe we can look into things that we can accomplish that.
Please.
Agreeing with what I'm hearing here, one thing that our former Senate President Imanda said when we had a very animated discussion about this in the English department, we're very unhappy about the idea of it. And the first thing she said is, where's the proposal? Is there a written proposal for this that's been presented to anywhere? I mean, I'm being very serious. Is there a written proposal for this?
No. All right.
Okay, there absolutely needs to be a detailed written proposal,
Absolutely.
but it can't wait till fall. We need this now. This can't be something, it does feel like it's already happening. I was reading in the paper this morning, and we all know this is happening nationally, this sense of nobody, the national level is trying to persuade anybody anymore. They're just trying to tell us what to do. We teach persuasion. I teach argument in my class. And if you want to bring people along on an idea, you got to make a good case for it. And I don't see that case yet. That's why we asked all these questions. And I would like whomever thinks that the transition is a good idea needs to address every single one of those questions. But we need a very detailed proposal to see if this is something we want to consider. But right now, what we're hearing is, well, we'll talk about it in the fall, but it sure sounds like it's a done deal. That's the way it sounds.
It's the language, we're gonna do this in phases. That's a trigger for us because that says it's already gonna be in motion.
Yeah,
already is.
So we touched on a little bit the student perspective. but I teach auto shop, right? And that is all encompassing. My students who come from the high school have swam in only one water. And that water is the Google interface, right? Everything is Google, Google Sheets, Google Slides. That's what they know, it's what they use, it's what they have. How much time now do I have to develop into my curriculum to teach a new technology interface? Because they aren't identical, right? Of course, they're separate. So the student success, we're all beating the student success drum. And if now I have to teach auto shop and technology acquisition and a new interface and a new, where is that tab getting, right? How do I, right? It's just so small. That was point one. Point two, I was hired at the transition from Moodle to Canvas. That's seamless transition.
It's still not seamless. We're still doing it.
So, the aspirational goal of they're gonna talk and everything's gonna transfer over, and the reality are two very different things. And obviously it should be different, but how different? Yeah. Thank you. Laura, please.
I'm Dr. Laura Weck, and I don't know if you realize what senators do, but one of the things we have to do is we have to take this back to our divisions and talk to our divisions about what happens in these meetings. And so I did that at my last division, and I'm gonna quote my dean, and Cornelia, who is also in my division, knows what the quote is because she was there as well. And his quote, Michael Medell, who oversees accounting and finance and business division, said, and I quote, "This is not an IT decision. This is a whole college decision because it is going to affect the whole college." And he, as an administrative leader, does not feel that it is the whole college decision right now. He also feels, and I would bring him in here 2 seconds because he can support me on this, that it is also being dictated even at that level. And so to have my dean say that to me, and to have my faculty, and I also work, you have to keep in mind, I work in business division. You have to remember, I come from your world. I come from Microsoft heavy, Fortune 500, Fortune 100. We live in Microsoft. But for student success, I know Excel backwards and forwards. I teach Excel. I actually don't know as much about Google Sheets, but I know where my students' comfort level is. And I know that I can interject Google Documents, Google all kinds of things, and they catch on like that. If I bring in a Microsoft Word, or I even just say, submit a Word file, they don't even know what I'm talking about. And it's my language as an accountant CPA. I live in the Microsoft world. That's where I come from. But that is so short-sighted for me to be like, well, that's my world, so that's what I'm gonna, and you have to remember, part of my division is the computer guys. I work with Angel and Mo, and these are IT guys who live in Microsoft. And I know and understand, probably maybe even better than you do, Israel, because my husband invented a very important popular piece of software. GoToMeeting and GoToPC. I understand platform design. I understand programming. This is the kind of conversations my husband and I have at dinner because we're freaking dorks. Okay, so I understand on the back end, you're absolutely right. Microsoft works a lot better in a lot of different ways, but that doesn't mean that you have to do it across the board. And there are ways to make it work. But when it comes to student success and it comes to instructional, I think there's a cost for everything. So the money you're going to save, the cost that you're going to have to invest to train all of these people in humanities and arts and everything that don't know the Microsoft world, it's a trade-off cost. So I think you really need to dive in, and I think you really need to hear and pump the brakes, because it's not going to happen next year. There's no way. I'm sorry, you need to learn our campus. These people are not going to do it. I'm an SLO coordinator. You know what it took me to get these people to do a fucking SLO that is required by
Well, it's required by ACCJC.
Right. I mean, this is a federal requirement, and I had to come very hard, and I got them to do it. But it didn't happen overnight. It took 3 years to get them to do something that is mandated.
Gotcha.
So I think you just need to like slow the roll. I know where you're coming from on the back end. There are some great reasons why you need to do this on a Microsoft level on the backside, But I think on the instructional side, you need to hear what these people are saying because they're coming from a standpoint that is not as familiar to you.
Let's go in order here. We have Christie, then we have Elizabeth, and we have Roland, and then we'll go to Stu.
I just was gonna say, I think there needs to be coordination with the Santa Barbara Unified School District because have a mission to serve our local students. They are all on Google. So what Russell was saying about having to train students to learn new products, like that's not gonna be ideal for students.
Elizabeth, please.
I think is another really important element, and I'm not sure how familiar you are with this because it's the pedagogical element. So I was open-minded to this. And I went out and I did my own exploration and I spoke with people. I spoke with the person in your previous position. I spoke with some other people, some other campuses. And the fundamental difference between Google and Microsoft is that Google was, and this is of course at a level of explanation that I was able to comprehend, so forgive that, is that Google was developed for interaction. Yes. So when Google was developed, it was meant so multiple people could interact together within one document, within one framework. And so from the beginning, all of the software, all of the development was meant to do that. And because that was popular, Microsoft added that kind of an element into its infrastructure, but it was an add-on. And so it's not as seamless. It's not integral. It's not meant for interaction at the level that somebody teaching wants to interact. And so it's sufficient for the business world, but it's not sufficient for the kind of work, the interactive kind of work we do. And there's too many problems, and there's too many obstacles, and there's too many glitches. And when the second our students hit it, we know this. The second they hit a glitch, they quit, they leave. Not all of them. Many of them are very dedicated. I shouldn't speak that way, but they're more likely to. And we know that from all of the data, every obstacle, every obstacle we put in front of our students is one opportunity for them to choose not to be with us. Right. And so we can't afford it. And so I am adamantly against it from what I've learned.
Yeah, there's something really perverse about this entire process, and it's that we are having to defend a proposed move without any justification of what the proposed move is going to bring in terms of benefit, right? It's as though we're in a court of law and we're the defendants defending ourselves from a prosecution that's bringing no evidence. We had no evidence. This is in terms of the proposal. What's this going to save the college? So did you have an estimate? How much money is this going to save the college if we were going to have it? Short answer.
I have an idea, but I don't want to get that number out just yet. Because I want to give you actual numbers and not something that's been made.
Give us an order of magnitude. So hundreds of thousands, millions?
Yes.
Okay, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So
if I may, just to bring this back, a consultation council, the faculty leadership, Senate and FA were quoted $500,000 a year.
A year.
And the question that I followed up on that one was, if we did make this move, what are we going to apply the savings towards? It was suggested that would be applied to the structural deficit itself, in savings. But then there was also question, was there an actual spending analysis to be able to make sure that is the potential change?
Yeah, wait. That was a parenthetical point. The larger point is, we don't know what it is that's being proposed. Right. And as part of that, we don't know what the real costs are going to be. There's a very apparent savings to a computer programmer of $500,000. But when this trickles down to the faculty and the amount of time we take as an institution to implement something that probably doesn't even work as well for student success, this thing is a dog. And so this approach you've taken of not coming to faculty, us actually having to read between the lines of some of your emails, because I'm the one that brought this to Senate in a public comment, and invite you in here to figure out what is going on behind closed doors is a loser for you at this school. Because we're with our students in the trenches every day, dedicated to their success, and we see this as antithetical to that. And so your job here is going to be very difficult if you don't engage us up front in conversations. And, we're gonna be going with the board with this, the administration with this, and whereas we could have had a constructive, much more collegial relationship, I'm afraid it's gonna be somewhat combative. And, you're gonna have a hard time unwinding this and getting support for this move at any point. And I'm with my colleagues, I just don't see this as benefiting students or the college, and I see the cost savings being a wash in the end.
Cornelia, I did see your hand up. Is that a follow-up financial?
Okay, Matt.
Gosh.
People on the line.
Rosa,
It's Danielle.
Please. Rosa, you have your hands up?
Danielle.
All right, Danielle.
I'm sorry, it took me a minute to get unmuted. Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. This is going to interfere with student success, and we are charged for student success. That's what we are here to do. The second thing I would like to know, with this cost savings of $500,000, how many people are you going to hire to help implement this so it goes smoother, so we don't lose students and or faculty? Thank you.
I put the content really nice.
And Danielle, you will sort of add up.
I have a similar comment because I looked it up. Microsoft is losing market share. So why are we moving to a system that is in decline, that fewer and fewer institutions and businesses are using? Microsoft does not play well with Apple. Most of our students are using Macs and iPhones, and this poses a huge problem. I'm also hearing a lot about consultants. So how many hundreds of thousands of dollars are we going to spend on consultants to facilitate this? And also, let's be real, the 4 people in IT that they were trying to lay off were going to be replaced with a consulting firm in Texas. How much money are we actually saving, and how much damage are we doing to the institution and especially to students? Because
I've lost it.
I am like, my flabber is gasted, and the lack of process around this is just appalling. And I cannot be more upset and opposed to this proposal. Anyway, that's all I can say.
Thank you, Danielle. If I may also weigh in, I mean, these were conversations that were very much previewed over at DTC as well. I think that you will find across constituents that not only the faculty, but the staff are very much opposed to this transition. And there are still some lingering concerns that I have too. Just some things for you to maybe think about your communications with the executive leadership. One, back in November 2025, the Chancellor's Office announced a partnership with Google. Now, it's with respect to AI, but that's where questions are going to pop up. Why are we making this transition when Google has just agreed to work with the Chancellor's Office for this overhaul of our instructions? So that would be one. The other is a practical concern, and I still have not gotten an answer from anybody that I've directed this question towards. It was actually Tara who homed in on this one at Consultation Council. When a faculty member retires, then at some point, their access to their Google Drive, their life's work is cut off completely. Unless we have someone as a designee of the department who is active to step in and say, we'll help you manage those files. The reason we were told for why it is that access is cut off is because of further concerns. It's because of privacy concerns. How are we going to stop every single faculty member here whose intellectual property is on Google Drive from deciding, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to transition everything to a new Google account, and I'm going to just teach from there.
Yep.
That is a major concern. Can you vouch for every single one of the faculty who use Google who will say, you're going to go with this, I'm gonna do this other thing that may put us in a very actionable position. I just do not know that that has been addressed just yet. So we're hoping that many of us understand. We're trying to work with the administration on this one. But we're hoping that you can carry this in your conversations with the executive.
Josh. Yeah, one final comment, from my point of view. First of all, I just want to thank you for your open attitude in this meeting, because this is, I'm sure, not so easy to hear all this stuff. But what concerns me a bit, just because you are 3 months in, which is really a short amount of time compared to any of us. But I'm concerned in a way that in terms of our onboarding process at this college, that you didn't get the message that we do have shared governance here. Because one of the reasons my art department chairs have been so freaking out is that they've been in spaces where I think you have mentioned that this is happening. And that's why this has caused already so much just anxiety and fear across the campus, to the point where I think I said to Josh, because I was sending Josh all these emails, I said, I think at this point, the president needs to make a statement about this. Like, it's okay, guys, we're not actually doing this. But then I kept hearing, and even today, you mentioned like this plan that again seems to be on a path to happening. And I just would really hope that at some point, the administration with whom you interact would say, we are so sorry because we've miscommunicated with you. This is not your decision, not any of our decisions. This, as Dean Michael Mandel said, this is a whole college decision, and one that has to be considered very, very carefully. And we need to take in all these perspectives. We would never, ever tell people we're doing this before it had been fully vetted and discussed. So that, in a way, that is what concerns me the most, that these kind of really dangerous proclamations have been made, dangerous in the sense that it has already caused so much anxiety and concern across the college. But again, I do truly appreciate your kindly hearing this today.
Yeah, let me say two things. One, let me apologize, because maybe I chose the wrong words. Okay. Two, let me apologize again, because from what I understand, the way projects have been done in the past, technology projects have been done in the past, has been forced upon the college without any collaboration from the college itself, right? Three, I work a little bit differently. My mind is always in a project mindset. And when I do projects with stakeholders. And you're a stakeholder. You have enough skin in the game as much as I do. We all have skin in the game. And so once we start deciding and not going on this path of discovery, you will be at the table, or someone from this group will be at the table, so we can have those discussions. Right? We're not forcing anything on anyone. Right? I said we will be having conversations in the fall to see if this is doable. Right? And the timeline that goes with that. I think at ITC a few weeks ago, we were like, well, we can't do it in a year. How about we do it in a 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year, right? That's something that we have to figure out and discuss if it's doable. So I apologize for the leadership that IT had before that forced things upon you without really getting consultation from you guys. I apologize for that, but that's not the way I work. Right? So I came here, I'm willing to work and discuss, and I'll go to any committee and talk to anyone to make sure that your voices are heard, so that I can make a decision, that we can all make an informed decision properly. So I apologize for the words that I might have chose earlier, but I'm sorry for that.
I would appreciate your sincere delivery there. I accept it as blessed truth. When some folks who have been not heard in the past and even recently. Are concerned that in governance that at times decisions are made ahead of time. And we won't say behind closed doors, maybe in closed door session, right?
Yeah.
And then the opportunity to hear others out, some folks might feel like it's a formality.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's gonna be what happens, but that's the heart that we're asking you to please take when it comes to the hearts of the faculty and staff here.
Right.
Because we ask that you please care about.
I will say that I try to be as transparent as possible. That's why the first month that I was here, I instituted the IT open house, you know, I think on the third.
That's where my faculty heard about this.
Right, and so we'll, you know, that's an opportunity for people to come in and talk and share ideas or whatever else, right? So I will come to any, like, I was invited to ITC, I was invited here, I will go to anywhere and talk and share. If you want to have a one-on-one meeting with me, I'll have a one-on-one meeting with you. And as I'm developing the plan, you know, I hope to come back once I have the plan finalized. And really do a presentation across the organization as a whole, say, this is why we should do it, or why we shouldn't do it, so on and so forth, right? Again, it's a discussion. You know, I again, I have to apologize for, that's the way that it was done in the past with other technology that was implemented. That's not the way I function. And I hope, let me earn your respect and your trust. Just give me that time.
So I have to push back against this notion that previous IT directors and departments have foisted technological changes upon us. I don't know what you're talking about. I've never seen anything like this in my 14 years here. We made a new web page. It was 2 years of collaboration. We had a two-factor authentication. Dean Evans was reaching out to us. We have to do this for security. I'm sorry. I mean, the list goes on and on. Am I missing? Was I asleep when there was some new technology foisted upon us?
The Moodle canvas
Was that-
page.
Did I miss
That
that?
was a collaborative decision.
Yeah.
We decided.
Yeah,
Because it was free. Yeah.
this is completely unique in its unilateralness.
It is.
And I just want to make sure that.
Yeah.
The mention that was made just a moment prior was that in the past, it has been collaborative. In the past, it has been a college-wide decision that was being made. I think you might have heard it a bit, interpreted it a bit differently.
I'm going back what I was told over the last 3 months, right? And why there are some issues in the past with certain technologies that's been implemented, right? So I can only go by what I've heard internally and.
We said it was hard to do, but we were all on board with it, is the point.
Well, we
Like,
might know.
this was not, this thing this idea of the migration from Google to Microsoft, this doesn't feel like anyone's been consulted. And it's.
I'm all-
we haven't.
Apparently, this has been going on even before I got here. And so this conversation has not been had before I got here. So so I'm here trying to, you know, assess everything.
So can I just get a confirmation based on the last statement you just gave? So in summary, the IT world is not moving forward with the Microsoft transition. The next time you meet to discuss a potential transition, it will be a proposal, not a plan of action with dates, and that it will be analyze the cost savings and the impact and look at a holistic view of all the stakeholders, including student success, and what that would cost in terms of increased help desk for students in this new technological world. So we are not moving forward with this transition as a campus.
Correct.
At the earliest, maybe in the fall, we will have a robust analysis of proposals where the potential outcome could be to keep Google as a student-facing educational portal for technological uses. Is that correct?
Correct. We'll have, in the fall, we'll have, start those discussions. I will have a very, I'm not gonna call it loose, but very high level proposal. And then we will have those discussions, and then sometime in the fall, we'll actually have a formal proposal to see if we go, if we go or no go.
And with that last piece, and so the student and faculty voice will be included
Yes,
in transparency
yes,
or any transition is made.
yes.
And just to add on to that, can you also commit that at no point will any back office choices about the transition to Microsoft that are happening now be used in a conversation that will impact the financial outcome of the move.
Say that again?
I said at no time in the future will you say that the overall financial impact of the move or the financial benefit of the move will be influenced by choices that will have been made outside of the collaborative conversation.
Correct, yeah. Any back end stuff has to be done because this just has to be done, right? But it will not impact that front facing, user facing, student facing aspect of Google.
Or the overall cost.
No, the overall cost, correct.
Cornelia, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I'm a little bit now confused about the discussion going about the cost. I just want to have a favor to ask, once you come with your proposal, because you said you will bring a high level proposal. On the cost savings aspect, I would please ask that you bring a detailed proposal, how much that is actually costing, how much we are saving, because very, very clearly from everything I've heard so far, the one thing that is driving this is cost savings. So we need to first make sure that this would actually really save a substantial amount of money. And a couple of $100,000, I'm sorry, in the overall scope of things is not enough for me. You know, this needs to be really convincing, really saving us.
There's more to it than just cost saving, right? From
that I have not heard so far. Have I heard that?
There's also a managerial and administrative aspect of it that impacts what we do from an IT perspective, right? If I go out to the CTOs or the other colleges and say, hey, I need help with Google, there's not that many colleges that can support me.
Yes.
There's more colleges that have migrated from Google to Microsoft.
And we have data of that, of the 72 districts?
Yeah.
Can you share that immediately?
Yeah.
But the UCs use Google and we have like our neighboring UCSB, they use Google as their platform. So the CSU, so we could go out to their CTOs.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't gone to those CTOs, I've gone to the community colleges. But I can
There are neighbors as well in community.
That would be a critical piece for me too, because we are by and large a transfer institute. What are our students transferring to?
So they come from Unified using Google, they go to UCSB using Google.
And then
It
we
somehow makes sense
stopgap it.
that they are using Google here. I'm just.
But again, from administrative and management, and from an enterprise standpoint, all the colleges have gone to Microsoft,
Okay.
right? And so if I need help with OneDrive or, Defender or Purview, whatever else, I get more support from the other colleges than if I need to say, hey, I need help with, CloudLock. Not many colleges are using CloudLock. Right, and so from a support and managerial, enterprise standpoint, I get more support from. So for my back office operations, I get more support from the colleges from Microsoft.
Everyone, as a next step, just wanted to let you know, since our last discussion on this was agendized, I was bombarded by phone calls, text messages, Google chats. So, and this was beyond just the faculty leadership in the Senate, FPSS, ITC, who have weighed in on this, the TLC as well. So the other questions that I've gotten on the credit side was, when will a survey be coming to us? So I intend after spring break to send out a modified version of this survey. I could use your eyes on it as well to see if there are things that you want to add on to this one. I'd like to be able to have this ready so that I can present this in any circle, be that the administration or the board, to discuss where the campus is. So please have a look at the forum again, because there may be some things that we want to add in so that we can have all faculty, credit and non-credit, to be able to have that at a glance for us. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I will be back one day.
Everyone, we are in overtime here. I need to impose upon your time for just one more moment. On screen for you, this is draft 2 of the academic calendar for 2026, 2027. So folks, this was brought back, so altogether, thank you so much. Altogether, the initial impression was the calendar draft that said, let's knock out Thanksgiving. That was not well received by the majority of the senators here.
No.
A big part of that was because of this idea that the that the start of the the start of the fall semester would ride up right against the end of the summer session. And certainly that was a big concern, especially for turning out grades. There were concerns also about prerequisite checks for being able to move on for fall 2026. So there was another question that was added just to circle back to this, for which I could use your input, folks. It may not be right now, but you may be able to email me about your feedback going into the next academic calendar work. There is a suggestion, what if we could move up the summer term? And so
10 weeks, move it
So-
earlier,
so-
we wouldn't have any break between spring and summer.
So what was the suggestion was that this would be moved up to a start date of, what was it, right after May 31st, so that would be June 1. That would
That's
right up,
what it is now.
that would start at no, it's not.
Yes, it is.
The start here is
We're starting June.
We're
1.
starting June 1 this
Yeah,
year.
we are.
June 1 for 2027.
Yes.
I-
2026.
June seventh, we're starting June seventh.
June 7th.
We're not.
This is 27.
That.
Yeah,
Oh.
that calendar year, not this calendar year.
Talking
Well,
That's June
Moving the start of the summer term one.
2027.
So that it's, so that ahead, so that it's not riding up against,
Fall.
against the fall semester, very good. The other thing that was on the table, but for which there was some consternation, was the idea, could this be on an 8-week term for the summer?
No.
That's a challenge, that is a challenge also that has been thrown in as well, because of the possibility that courses in sequence would not be able to be scheduled. However, there was also another proposal that was put on that said 4 classes that are in sequence, like Physics 110 and 111. A question was asked, could we possibly have a deferred end date for those courses in sequence? So those are some of the things that were suggested. Barbara, and then
I have a question for our science faculty. In our, again, in our department was very much against draft 2 for a variety of reasons, getting rid of that whole week. But one question was the opposition in the spring to an earlier start date is, you all, I understand we don't want to lose 2 Monday labs. Wouldn't that happen?
Yeah, so one of the feedback that we were getting by emails, and I just did the math like on a piece of paper right before this, is that with this proposed schedule, by having the start date of the semester on a Wednesday
Yes.
and not a Monday, we're basically canceling out a Monday, Tuesday and adding a Thursday, Friday. And so on the draft 2, we would only have 13 Monday labs, whereas we would have 15 Wednesdays and 14 Tuesday, Thursdays. So science division is okay, like on the spring, we would give us 14 Monday labs and then 15 Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday labs. So I think the deal breaker is when we go from 14 Mondays to 13 Mondays, that's too little. And that's why we ended up with the spring start date getting pushed back, so we could get that 14th Monday. If not, we would, right, then we were back to only 13 Mondays and we could start the spring early. So the Monday only classes, it's science instructor, we teach a lot of Monday only labs. However, there are other programs on campus that teach studio classes and
Yes.
other Monday only sessions. Automotive, but yeah, so with this proposed schedule, it, like, for example, it would give us 15 Fridays, but only 13 Mondays. But science faculty in general, they love the idea of the week-long break because it normalizes it, because we do know that some areas on campus or some staff, like campus areas get shut down on that Wednesday, and so students don't have student service. So they love the idea of just having the week off and putting everybody on the same calendar. However, the cost of having only 13 Monday labs gives that group of students a more difficult time, because they wouldn't be able to make up that content virtually. In some cases, like Robbie Fisher said, they can't grow cells at home.
Right, yeah.
And you have cadaver.
Yeah, right, yeah.
everyone, I need to capture all of this feedback in preparation for the next meeting. Vanessa Algin and I will carry this forward. I'm sorry to say that my legacy to you as academic senate president is that I'm sending you a ton of Google Forms and Google Docs to be able to get.
They're not-
Yeah, right. I will try to get ahead of that one with our folks at the FRC. Laura, please.
Just one thing that came out of the business division was an ask from Keller from institutional effectiveness to do a survey to students to ask them about what kind of schedule they want.
Calendar.
Not schedule,
Yeah,
calendar,
calendar.
what kind of calendar they would like. Like, does that help them to have the week of Thanksgiving off? Do they like?
Are you kidding? Are you kidding? You know what the answer is gonna be? They're not considering labs. They're not considering what classes they're gonna miss.
We have a mix of like, we have.
It's another lab.
Yes.
Last Monday.
Was the idea was wanting student input, because like the students, like how late our spring starts, the students don't like that. How, like having Thanksgiving off, yeah, but like they've kind of, a lot of them have voiced they want the 2 summer sessions back. They don't like the week off. So like there's a lot of input that they want from students. And so they were like, why don't we, if we're talking about this concept, we want students success rates, what would set them up for success?
But they have to know if you have Thanksgiving off, they're gonna start summer or fall immediately after summer.
Right, and that's
Also, returning for discussion at our April 8th meeting, what you're looking at on screen is draft 3 of AP 5550 academic integrity. I have taken the work from the AP committee and the English department and reconciled to them. This is a clean copy that I want to bring back for discussion with everybody. All right, folks. Before we
look at it.
Yeah.
Please, thank you very much, Elizabeth. Before if we lose too many Senate members to having to handle parental responsibilities, do we have a motion on the table to adjourn today's meeting?
Yeah.
Meeting adjourned, folks. We have our Senate meetings. We have a lot to get done before.
I know we can get to the. Barbara, I just wanted to let you know that I didn't
Have a wonderful
acknowledge
spring break,